Box lunches are available. If you're hungry, you can get a box lunch and eat it during the showcase coming up. Box lunches.
Timing than the breakdown. But yeah. No, it all worked out. But yeah, feel free to grab your name tag and take a seat up here. I think we're going to get started in a few minutes. Yeah. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, so grab a box lunch and get settled. And showcase presenters, feel free to come up to the front. Bring your name tags. Hello. If I could have all of the showcase presenters come up to the front. Getting more lunches. Okay, we're gonna get started with the last NNIP showcase. We have 5 presenters. Okay, so we're gonna take a minute away for each presenter, all the way down to John at the end. Okay, we're going to begin with April, who's going to leave right after her presentation to catch her flight. So this is also our farewell to April for the conference.
And I don't think it's going to be a good farewell, but that's okay. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about how we redid our website. I think most of you are way better at websites than we are, so I'm a little ashamed of this, but this is our old website. It was really bad, and I'm going to complain about it for a little bit. The worst thing about it is that it's actually missing links to our most popular data portal. There's text that's really unhelpful. There's partner logos for people that we don't know anymore. There's a map that you can't understand. And then there's a lot of blank space that doesn't make any sense. It also doesn't do a good job describing what we do. So in recreating our website, we had a lot of conversations about what we do at the center. And we've really kind of nailed down our value add. We access data, we clean that data, and then we link that data together. It's kind of hard to communicate all of what we do on a website. You know, we make the data accessible. That facilitates community-focused data stories by us and by partners. Plus, we do research and program evaluation and academic research, white paper and kind of blue paper style. So how do you present all of that on a website? I don't know. This is the wireframe we came up with. We were like, we got to have some kind of infographic where somehow we explain what we do to people. And then we need to link to our data portals. And then we need to link to data portals that are powered by our data, but maybe created by other institutions in the community, because we want our funders and we want other folks to know that our data is involved in some of that work. So this is kind of our wireframe. And then ideally, we would also help people find the data they're looking for with a search functionality that looks across our different data portals. So we had some stuff to figure out, and a cross-data portal search function was one of those things. How do we communicate a data portal functions with visuals? How do we communicate our value to the data ecosystem? And how do we communicate that we have these really cool partnerships? Thank goodness we have you guys, because we just looked at what you were doing. Because this is not our strong suit. We don't have a lot of help with communications. So we looked at your websites and took a look at your search functions. A bunch of you have them. They're pretty awesome, and I'm jealous. They look great. So we looked at how you visualize data portals and graphics to see, what are your icons and how do you express that data information to people. And we looked to see if any of you talk about data ecosystems and partnerships and how you do that, so we could try to copy that too. And then lastly, we looked to see if any of you talk about data warehouse as that core value, to see if we could copy that. And a few of you did that. So eventually, we worked with a graphic designer to come up with some branding first and foremost. So this is kind of our new branding. We thought it was funny that Thoughtwell talked about their branding, and we were like on the same wavelength with lines and dots. There we go. We got some nice icons for our data portals, working with our graphic designer, and we're kind of trying out this infographic concept. I'm not sure it's really going to work, but for right now, we've got an infographic that tries to explain what we do with data as a tree. We'll see. This is my fault. If it doesn't work, it's all right. So this is just a little bit about this is basically a screenshot of our new website. So it says, we harness data for social good. Here's a tree. It's kind of like what we do. Here's all of our data tools. That's new for us, linking them all on one web page. And then, our what we're calling Powered by NeoCanDo. So folks in the community that use our data and pull them into their products, we get to kind of brand them here and show how that data warehousing benefits a broader ecosystem. In hindsight, we didn't talk to any users about any of this. The infographic was probably a bad idea.
Yeah, April, did you want to, okay, or just leave? You can totally finish this slide. This is your exit of NNIP Atlanta.
And the university's doing some rebranding, so we're going to have to change everything, but...
Thank you, April. Have a good flight. Thanks for all your contributions to the network. So great, that was our first presenter. But also an awesome look at what all the partners are doing as it sped through in the presentation. It was good to see all of the different types of work and ways of connecting that data to users that all of our partners do in just a quick snapshot. So next, Matt Nowlin's going to come up and talk about savvy community profiles.
Okay, hey everybody. I am going to introduce a new tool that we released this spring called Savvy Community Profiles. Let's see, Community Profiles was the second most common usage of Savvy, and our current tool that we had last year was not as fast or user-friendly as it could be, so it was a priority to design a new one. Oops. So how did we design it? I want to talk about how we designed it, show what we ended up with, and then show some of the challenges. We put together an advisory committee and figured out from them what our target audience should be, our use cases, got some design feedback, and we also talked to users to get some input up front about how they use data and get some information and design preferences. And this makes it look like it went better than it did. It just, I don't know. We got good info, and it's also hard to apply that in reality. This project was a big, overwhelming challenge to think of a new tool from the ground up. So sketching our ideas out on paper really helped. We found that, creative thinking was tough in our busy, pressured office environment. So we had to set aside blocks of hours to really devote to this before ideas started to get good. Thankfully, we had a design intern during this period to help us out with this. Let's see. Oh, so then we developed paper prototypes, which we found really helpful to quickly get ideas in front of internal folks for review and in front of our advisory committee without having to spend a bunch of time in Photoshop or whatever tool you use. It was also more fun. So then we developed a digital prototype with this tool called Envision, and if any of you are, it worked really well, and also our workflow is kind of janky and ad hoc, and I'm just still trying to figure out this tool. So if anybody here does digital prototyping, particularly with Envision or anything, I would love to learn about your workflow. But it was pretty easy to communicate what the functionality of this would be once we had built it in this digital prototype. So it looks real fancy, but it's all pictures. So next, we built the thing, and so this is a quick video to walk through what it does. Okay, so you pick some areas, and you click Create a Profile, and you get indicators that live inside these cards. You can expand the card to break it down into different demographic groups, and you also see each card on the map if you choose. You can also pick by some different selection methods, like you saw a radius, here's a buffer around a line. No matter what, we always pick the underlying geographies instead of trying to interpolate, so we just sort of avoided or punted on that issue. And we have 15 different kinds of geographies in here. I'm showing tracks now, but we've got block groups, counties, school corps, a bunch of things. One challenge is aggregating data from these geographies is kind of slow, and you hang out at that spinner for a minute. Let's see. Then this sort of shows the functionality of like once you've got an indicator on your profile, you can expand it, you can map it, you can even break down the map by different demographic categories where possible. So that's the lightning round intro to the tool, and it's at profiles.savvy.org. And so now for the good part, what was hard about it. User-centered design is difficult in practice. So we tried to get input, and we did. It was great, but also people often have very ambitious ideas for usability, like searching by neighborhood. They just want to get to a site, type in their zip code, and like learn exactly what they're thinking about. And they're also used to like tools that use technology that we can't afford. So that's one challenge. Also, we got, I'm not sure if this is in this slide, but yeah, we got a lot of one-on-one feedback from people that when you get the one-on-one feedback, it's really deep and useful, but it's also really specific, and you're not sure like how widespread is this way of thinking. When you build in-house, which we did, there are so many ideas and bugs that we don't have time to get to. So right now, I feel simultaneously like very proud of this and very embarrassed by it. So we, hopefully we'll get back to it, but it's like once a project is done enough, it's hard to talk to the developers and be like, hey, you got any time to like fix this thing, or because they're on to the next one, right? Lastly, no matter how user-friendly you make the tools, geospatial analysis is a foreign concept to many people. So, like, I thought that the interface of, like, here's a map, click on it, and we'll tell you about that spot was super basic, like just the core of what we wanted. And I tested with a few people, and it was great. Also tested with some people who were just like, what do I do here? Like, where? So the idea of maps is, like, in itself just sort of alienating. Also, the way that data ties to place. So, for example, in our tool, you could pick a school corporation and then see poverty rate for the households that live within that boundary, right? But it's hard for non-data nerds to understand, like, that's the poverty rate for people who live inside this shape, not for people who go to these schools. You know what I mean? So that difference between place and data collection, yeah, it's just very confusing. Okay, thank you.
Kind of a whirlwind of user, and the trend will continue, user profiles, user-centered design, and how that looks. Also a pitch for the last camp session I was in about data literacy and kind of how those tools relate to people, users who are looking for data. So check out the notes. And here's Ryan Barrett going to represent the local partner.
One person. Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm Ryan Barrett, and I hope you've enjoyed the conference so far and your visit to Atlanta. At Neighborhood Nexus and the Atlanta Regional Commission, I manage the Enterprise GIS, Open Data Program, and Geospatial Community Group. Today, I'll talk about neighborhood data for social change and community outreach. Before I talk about where we're at today, let's take a quick look back. Now, we all know how important and empowering open data is for data-driven decision-making, collaboration, and everything else. Sounds great, but in 2007, this took the form of static snapshots posted to our webpage, no interactive front end, no live data, no API. Given our mountains of data, this meant considerable data management challenges. So we needed a new approach. This took some time to secure buy-in, but we deployed a new internal technical framework from the ground up using Esri software that is integrated and scalable. This required new policies and standards, but enabled data owners across the center to directly edit and publish internally. With this new foundation, we could then extend data as live, dynamic, completely open web feeds called map or feature services that anyone, anywhere can use. Now we can sync changes automatically at once, both internally and externally. Now, back to 2015, we launched an external open data portal. This is a robust front end, many are familiar with, built on ArcGIS Online to engage, explore, and transform data to various formats. It's built with templates and widgets, but it's also open code to customize further and has an API. About a year ago, we realized that this is flexible enough to also serve as a hub for cross-platform content to give context and meaning to the data, be it a dashboard on our ARC blog, interactive county profiles from NN, or polling data from local governments. Key features to the hub include interoperability and scalability, always live, always the latest and greatest, many different formats listed here and many more soon, any and all content across platforms, one-click hook to local government hubs where all their authoritative data and content is automatically pushed to our hub too. This means when the City of Atlanta publishes the latest city design data, we get it as soon as they do and everyone else, and this works the other way too when we push out data. We do continual outreach to raise awareness and build the program. This is through quarterly Atlanta Region Geospatial Community group meetings with members of local government around the region, as well as nonprofits and academic entities. We've hosted technical workshops and met one-on-one with local governments to walk through data prep and setting up a portal. And we're here anytime to support open data from local governments and our partners. Through the Geospatial Community Group and our partnerships with local governments, we've made progress, but if we collaborate in a more formal capacity, we can have a greater impact. We've heard that being able to point to our embrace of open data has helped secure buy-in, and formalizing these relationships around a mission statement informed by peer review to establish governance, policies, standards, and a revamped front end. We hope to ramp up, strengthen, and expand our network. We would love to hear any ideas you have. So Google Analytics gives us insight into how folks are using our hub. Since 2015, we've had nearly 31,000 users across 320,000 page views, and we're still growing. Each visit is about 5 minutes across 6 pages. Last month, we saw 1,400 users across nearly 2,000 sessions. About half of our traffic is direct, where the other half is from search. We were surprised to see users all over our state and the globe. And looking ahead, we're excited to see where the Open Data Council takes us and look forward to growing our network. Always more data, of course. By the way, if you're familiar with Weave, we will soon have all of the Weave data published through our Open Data portal. We will continue to build context and meaning and tell the story and to innovate to make things not just new, but better along the way too. Quickly, there is one new tool we're bringing to bear to work with web feeds. Ever wish for a percent or density fill in looking at a web map? There's a new expression language called Arcade Expressions that allows this to be easily created. This language can perform mathematical calculations, manipulate text, and evaluate logical statements to append to a web feed or save as new and reuse. This offers increased flexibility to work with existing data to create derived data. These are just a few examples from our web development resource documentation that we created to help our internal users. That was a super quick tour of what we've done. If you're a nonprofit, all this can be accomplished with free software from Esri. If not so nonprofit, recent changes to ArcGIS Online allow full access for $500 per user per year with 500 credits. There are many ways you can leverage the software for free, just not to that full capacity. So please check out what Esri has to offer and our open data and mapping hub at arcopendata.com. Please let me know any questions. Please get in touch with any thoughts, and I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great. Our next presenter is going to talk again a little bit more in depth about the process of what the user profile can look like. Let me pull it up. Please welcome Aaron Schill.
Hi, so I'm with the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, so that is basically the ARC for Columbus and the surrounding area. So we serve 60 local governments, 15 counties, and like all of you, data is at the core of what we've always done. We've always been a collector, provider, aggregator of data, but we haven't been very intentional about it. So generally, we used to just make a ton of shit and put it out there and then hope somebody would want to use it or hope it met their needs. But we've had this persistent problem from the start. And so we decided to try to get at this question and tackle this problem using some user-centered design techniques. So last conference, there was a session on user personas, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but 2 key points is that there's a lot of specificity in good user personas, and that helps us get to know who we're targeting and treat them like real people. And that specificity comes out of research about actual users. So these are fictional people, but you got to do a lot of research to get there. And this is some of the research we did. So we conducted 3 focus groups with data experts in our region. We did a regional survey of as many data users, just residents and different users of data. And then we talked to a whole bunch of you. So thank you for for your feedback. All that research shows up in the research report that we publish, but I'm going to just touch on a few things we found. So the first is we found out a lot about our roles. So we categorize those into 3 things. We gather data, we do stuff with data, and then we provide data. So this is just a quick summary of what those roles are. We also learned a lot about our audiences, and so we categorize those into different tiers. So we have folks that we work with all the way through. We get data from them, we do stuff with data with them, and then we give them data. Then that goes all the way down to the people. Tier 3 at the bottom there is people that just want our data. They don't want to talk to us, they just want to get data somehow. So we learned a lot about how we're interacting with different people, kind of in a macro sense. And then we started to develop that into some resources. So you're going to see how these play out. These are the spectra that we developed that kind of help us guide us in what different people need. So now I'm going to introduce you to our newest 7 team members at MORPC. We're going to run through these quickly. So the first one is Savvy Sonia. You can see the spectra over there and how she wants to interact with data. She essentially represents all of us, the nonprofit, public sector kind of tech person, so planners, other data people who are pretty comfortable getting their own data and have some specific needs and ways they want to use it. Our next one is Manager Marco. So he represents kind of the executive or administrative level at, we mostly work with local governments, so we're thinking about city managers, township administrators, and wants quick access to data, wants stuff that's already processed, and needs to understand everything that's going on in their community, so is looking for a really broad range. Elaine is our super engaged citizen, so these are the people that call us up and have really specific needs and knowledge about their community. So in this case, she represents a watershed protection group, but that also is people like in affordable housing, neighborhood resident groups. They're the ones that often take information back to their communities and share. Delaney is our elected official. So similar to Marco, she's looking for some like really general broad information. A lot of times she has residents who have complaints about projects and she just needs to be able to get information to them, or like media requests about upcoming projects. And so she needs to be able to access pretty broad data. Hadia is our nonprofit representative. So in this case, works in affordable housing, but we have nonprofits who know a lot, often more than we do, about the data they're looking for, are pretty savvy and comfortable with data, but want to get some pretty targeted information. And so a little bit different needs than Sonia, who's working in the public sector. And then our last actual persona we created is Samir, and he kind of represents the private sector, so consultants, some of our pretty data savvy media contacts who know a lot about what they're doing and often are looking to answer really specific particular questions. So might call up with questions about, oh, and we're on to Cody. So Cody didn't show up in our data. We know it's a small subset of the community in our region, but we know it's one that's growing, and so we created a proto-persona because it doesn't come out of the actual data, but we're getting a lot of interactions. So this is a growing group and one we're interacting with a lot, and we're getting a lot more requests for data. So that is a quick overview of our personas. It makes me super happy because my team talks about them kind of as shorthand. So someone will say like, I need to send this Excel sheet to Sonia and Marco, so can you give me one version that's formatted and one version that's machine readable? And I'm looking forward, I'm encouraging them to start like writing some fan fiction about them. We haven't gotten there yet, but we'll get there.
I like those very specific facts and personality traits about each of those.
That was the only contribution I got to make to
Oh, nice. Okay. Dachshund owner. Okay, great. Our last presenter is John Cruz, who is going to talk about adventures in parcel surveying.
Hi, everybody. So we've had lots of discussion now throughout the week talking about different ways that we can display data, and today I'm going to talk about collecting data. So what happened is, as we're starting to get into more interesting projects, we're realizing that one of the things that helps our projects get funded on the affordable housing world is being part of a development plan or a neighborhood master plan that allows the funding entities to say, oh, wow, this is actually working, people are doing things here, we want to fund you. So we decided to get into more the business of doing comprehensive plans for neighborhoods. Part of the requirements for that for the city of St. Louis, because they don't do any planning themselves, is to say, well, you got to do all this stuff, and part of it is doing a full-scale parcel survey. Thankfully, even though we had to survey over 5,000 parcels for one of our recent planning efforts that got adopted by our planning commission last week, it's not 1876 anymore. We don't necessarily look like that, at least not all of us, typically just me. And you know, there's other options that we have in order to really make this stuff work and make it an easy process to fly. So if you saw Noah's presentation on Monday with the stuff that he was doing, we're using the exact same software. This shows the same parcel that was surveyed by pen and paper in this 1970 versus what it looks like with the app from Loveland. And one is just so much easier than the other. Like, there's no reason not to. And there's a handful of other apps that do really similar stuff. This is the one that we liked. And now we're going to talk about what we learned because we needed to manage volunteers versus staff time, and how do you actually balance all this stuff out in a way that works and that you can manage it and it's not total complete chaos. So I think we did a pretty decent job of it, and this is all the stuff that we learned kind of as takeaways from all that. So coming up, you're going to see a map of our planning area. The south side on the left, the north side on the right. What we did was we had staff on their own time. Whenever you got like a half hour, you just need to get out of the office and go survey. Sent them to the north side, had the volunteers on the south side, so we can say, take this street from this block to this block, and then you're done. That way it's really easy to have the next team on the next day start off from that block and move forward. We gave them these sheets that give them all kinds of information about where we are, who you can call if there's any kind of issue, and any kind of information that they would need to hand out to people. So there were also tear-off sheets, so we use it as a community engagement tool, talking to people about our efforts, what they're doing, trying to get them to show up to public meetings, and all the ways that we try to reach folks who aren't like going to neighborhood meetings. So this is our staff table at one of our events, making sure that everything is well organized. There's lots of people who can answer questions, people who can answer things on the project side and the technology side, and give the volunteers food to keep them alive. We found that they really, really like that sort of stuff, especially on these hot summer days in Missouri. So we also really, really recommend using the buddy system, not just for safety, but in case somebody falls and gets injured and needs help, like me, or if there's some kind of issue with the technology, or just making sure that you guys, you know, can bounce ideas off each other and have someone to talk to and things like that. So we always send people out in either 2s or 3s. That is really, really helpful. We gave everybody t-shirts to help raise awareness for the kind of stuff that we're doing. Let them know that you're not like some oil tycoon from Texas who wants to go buy up a whole bunch of land and gentrify their neighborhood. Like, this is what we're doing. We're a local nonprofit. We can prove it, and we can give you more stuff, and we hope you come out and talk to us some more. That kind of stuff is really helpful. And it also worked as a really good way to like tell people what we were doing and show them the app and get them interested in mapping technology. And here's one of our volunteers talking with one of the children in the neighborhood, showing them how it works and how the surveying works and all the little geospatial stuff. And we thought it was a really cool way to like just involve the community in what we're doing and get residents and kids interested in this kind of technology, because we weren't introduced to this. Part of this also means you're going to meet some of the more interesting neighborhood characters, and you have to advise yourself to use caution. Been meeting with Neil here, who kind of walks around just like Jesus, talking about how Missouri is the land of the righteous and Illinois is the land of the sinner. So be cautious, but make sure that you're friendly and you engage everybody and have a plan for moving on. We had some super volunteers who were like, I can do this anytime I want. I run my own business. This guy was a longtime neighborhood resident. He surveyed hundreds of parcels on his own in his own time. We gave him just like a section to do, and we made sure that we honored his efforts with a certificate, and there were a few other people as well that we had as super volunteers who we wanted to recognize. And of course, always have a good home base where people can come back to in case there's a technology issue. Make sure there's somebody there to answer the phone. Make sure that there's somebody there that, you know, just like for peace of mind for all of our volunteers, knowing that if anything goes wrong, there's somewhere I can go back to. And here's me and Rachel, who was our intern, who were manning the staff table while people were out and about. Thank you very much. This has been my presentation on parcel surveying. I look forward to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. A round of
Time
applause
questions?
one more time for all of our presenters. And
We have about, yeah, we can take a few questions if people are.
April.
Olivia can answer questions for April.
Mm-hmm.
That was your question? People are tired.
Super quick question. John, what survey software did you end up deciding that you liked? Loveland.
Okay, the survey software we used was Site Control by Loveland. They're headquartered out of Detroit. And they were also the ones that did the Motor City mapping and the Blexting project and things like that. And we also know that Esri has some options that do similar parcel surveying, and a handful of other different software companies do similar stuff. We liked that Loveland was really easy to use. Like, you set up the surveys pretty much the same way you do in SurveyMonkey. The learning curve was easy. So part of the things I didn't get into with our presentation was like the training of the volunteers, and we'd all quickly go out and survey a couple parcels and get them used to it. And it's just a really easy thing to pick up. It just downloads and installs on their phone. It has iPhone and Android versions, and that was the big reason why we picked it, was because it was just easy for people to pick up and use, and they thought it was kind of like a fun little game for them. So.
Other questions? I have one for Ryan. So we are on the hook to actually write a guide for nonprofits on open data. So it feels intimidating to go to an open data portal and be like, oh, there's 20,000 data sets. And I just want your reaction, how the nonprofits reacted to the site, or if it had visualization tools, or if they were intimidated by the, needing to download and work with it, or however.
Oh, it can be intimidating. Can you guys hear me? We've been having a concerted effort lately to build context and meaning and purpose around the data. So, organizing the data with data sets, have it search driven, but then also a way to structure it. So you can see all data by category. But then what we're doing with the data, we've just recently pushed out a section that will categorize data by content type across categories. So if you want to see story maps, right there on the home page, you can just click the story maps. Or you want to see county profiles, right there, click those. and a couple of other options like dashboards and interactive maps as well. So we're really making a big push to bring more context and tell those stories, and that's helping greatly. We get a lot of just calls from folks in the community and answer questions all the time and help walk to the site, and that's something we're happy to do.
Yeah.
We thought about making some tutorials, and I see some other folks have kind of gone that route. I think that could be very helpful, maybe some video kind of walkthroughs. So that's something that we'd like to implement down the road as well to help out.
Great, thank you.
I have a quick follow-up to that for Matt. Who made the video, the Savvy walkthrough video, in-house?
Yeah, I made that. We wanted video tutorials, and it sounded kind of intimidating, so I don't know. I guess I would say it's easier to do than you think once you just start. I used my Mac laptop, and I'm trying to remember the software. It was just like QuickTime, and then I opened it in iMovie, and basically like if you sit there and poke around in it for 20 minutes, you can end up with like a 1 minute good video. So we found that so we made this 1 minute like super fast intro. We have like several other videos on our site that are about 5 minutes, sometimes less, sometimes a little more, but we tried to keep it at 5 minutes or less on maybe like a specific functionality and things like that. So basically, this was on the to-do list for a while, and it didn't get done until I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do like a script or make it too complicated. I'm just going to try it, and if it sucks, I'll delete it, and if it doesn't, cool. So,
just to piggyback on top of that, I do the same thing because I don't like trust the Wi-Fi at hotels and stuff like that. So if I want to like demo a piece of software or give a presentation on something, it is so much more peace of mind just knowing that everything's in your presentation and it's going to work and you're not worried about connection issues and data issues and stuff like that, right? Like it's just so much better peace of mind, I feel like. And the only downside to it is that like it takes maybe another half hour to do the video, and then your PowerPoint presentation goes from 400 kilobytes to 60 megabytes. But that's okay. It's a worthwhile trade-off, I feel like.
Great. Any last questions? Leah.
We didn't, so the question was how long did the parcel survey take? The short answer is longer than we thought. It was done over the course of a couple months. It was really difficult because we had to wait till the weather was nice enough that people would want to go outside, but not too late that it would be so hot that nobody wants to go outside. And we have a very short spring in St. Louis. Like, it's already 100 degrees there. So our window of opportunity was kind of limited, but we got things done during the course of April and May of last year between, like I said, a combination of our staff. Whenever we had time, we'd go out and survey a couple blocks or some parcels, or if we were like on the way to a meeting, they would stop and do it on the north end of the neighborhood. And then a handful of volunteer days where we would just ask people who were either on our resident steering committee, people that we'd had some other kind of public engagement with, people that we just like knew, like other friends of ours who were planners who were like, hey, you want to become part of a planning project, instead of just like reviewing nuisance claims all day. And they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. So that worked out pretty well.
I have one more for Aaron before. Just like, how transferable do you, your gut, obviously, about your user profiles. So if people don't have the time resources to go through all of them, could they just borrow Happy, a hopeful Hadidia or Samir, or, I mean
so my gut is, we're getting a lot of requests from people in Central Ohio. So we've probably had a dozen different agencies or partners ask if they can take them and use them, and we say, yes, please do. We intentionally asked, the survey intentionally asked about Central Ohio data, not about our data. And so the goal was that they're a regional resource that communities will use. I mean, I think a lot of the things we found out in the survey, and the report goes into a lot of detail about the results we got, they're pretty transferable. I mean, it was a broad survey of the community, so that information's transferable. The peer interviews that we did with the NNIP partners and other open data partners, we distilled that down into 6 key findings. That is really, really transferable. It's all stuff that we, I think, kind of all know, but are good to have reminders about. So yeah, generally speaking, I think you may want to calibrate for your own community if there are particular needs, but generally they transfer pretty well.
Last question for Bob.
Not necessarily. I just appreciate the honesty that we all talk about our work with, whether we succeed or fail, and this is one of the really great things that I admire about this network and everybody in it.
Great.
Great. So another round of applause, and then I'll bring up the rest of the urban crew. Or Rob. Do you need something pulled up? There's the GoPro.
First?
Oh, no, you should go first at the mention. All right, just a quick wrap up before we all have to depart.
Okay, so we're going to do our reflective wrap up. So we'll start with some of the questions from the group, and then we'll have a mic go around the room for any final thoughts that you have. So if you want to take out your phone and use the code that's on the screen on menti.com, and I will wait a few moments for everyone to get set up. Okay, looks like everybody's ready. So we're going to start with our fun question, and this is our trivia question. So remember that it's going to, okay, so go ahead and put in your name so you can compete for the championship. And remember that you have to get the question correct, and you have to be the fastest in order to win. So hopefully you'll know the answer, because if you are paying attention on Monday, then you already know what the answer to this question is.
Monday?
Sorry, on Wednesday. On Wednesday. If you're here on Wednesday and you paid attention, you will know the answer to this question. Okay, so according to Mike Carnathan, how many maps has he made in his career? Is it 1,000, 5,000, tens of thousands, or 1 million? 7 more seconds. How many maps does Mike Carnathan claim to have made during his career? Oh, good. Everyone was paying attention. Well, most people were anyway.
That'll teach him not to be here.
And Maya, congratulations. You get an extra Neighborhood Nexus shirt.
What? I didn't know it's here.
Who voted as Maya?
Oh, she just.
She guessed. She knew.
She guessed.
Okay, so now we have to rank on a scale of 1 to 10 if Atlanta was just kind of awesome or completely awesome.
Wait, what did the 10 is better?
10 is good.
Exclusive of the hotel. We should track this over time.
Indianapolis received a 9.2.
Uh-oh.
Anybody not vote yet? Wanna bump them? 8.7 is still good. Okay, so open text, what was your biggest takeaway from this meeting?
Pineapple beer. Ugh. That sounds awful.
Okay, thank you for that. And which city or cities do you plan to get in touch with when you return home next week? Okay, Durham better be ready for a lot of follow-ups next week. Okay, next one. Which of these do you pledge to do when you get back next week? And you can pick more than one. I think they're gonna need that encouragement.
I know. I didn't send a note. I didn't send a demo.
Kathy will be sending some encouragement for the blog post. Okay, So our next event is going to be in the fall, and we would really appreciate if you could send some suggestions for sessions that we could have. Okay, well, thank you for answering the questions. And if anyone has any final thoughts, or Kathy has any final thoughts, I'll turn it over now.
So this is the easy part of the program where we're all downhill, and I'm a little slap happy from not enough sleep for a week. So if we wanted, it just takes a lot of effort to put everything together over the full week. There's so many of you that have contributed to what I think was a really successful meeting. So if we could start by thanking Bernita, her team, Neighborhood Nexus, ARC. I have told all future hosts that swag and t-shirts are not required to host on the host guide, but the tours were great, the reception was lovely. I hung out in the Adirondack chair for several hours, I think, in the end, so we really appreciate that. The next folks to thank of the people that are really our brain trust in putting this meeting together, the executive committee, for those of them that are still here, raise your hand. Did anyone leave? Oh, there's a couple of them there, thank you. And I think, as was demonstrated here at the Ignite, we closed it out with the sharing. So all the people who presented, moderated camps, suggested camp sessions, all of those people. So if we can thank them. And behind the scenes, Bill and Charlotte Ann have been monitoring everything so that we have it. I think these, the videos are something we don't use enough of. If you really liked a panel and think your staff at home would benefit from seeing the speakers, those will be posted in a few days. And then finally, our urban staff that we had this time that have been running around taking notes and taking care of logistics and making sure there's coffee. These are folks that are researchers at home, so this is broadening out their skill sets in meeting management. So if we could give everyone a round of applause from my staff. So Monday, you will be receiving an evaluation, and I always, I'll do like a carrot stick question. So most partners don't pay registration fee, so consider filling out the evaluation, a registration fee for taking the 10 minutes and filling that out. But if you don't, also, 5 minutes. And also, but if you hate SurveyMonkey and you don't want to do surveys and you just want to give us reactions, just send emails to any of the staff. We actually are behind in scheduling and planning for Los Angeles, so the more ideas that you can give, I think especially feedback which we can take by phone or email about the racial equity workshop, both the format, the content, that was something that we struggled with, the balance between all that we wanted to share and the 2 hours, and was it too much, not enough? We are planning a similar session in LA around diversity in hiring and networks and board. It will be in your best interest to give us feedback about what you thought about today, so we can make it even better for Los Angeles. So thank you very much, and I hope everyone has safe travels home.